Hi, I'm Nancy Clark.
And I'm Anne-Marie Wallace-Phillips.
We're the Hospice and Bereavement Coordinators with Theo in Oxford, and this is Morning Chats with Anne Marie and Nancy. Cheers, Anne Marie.
Cheers, Nancy. As you can see, Nancy and I are in different offices. We're being respectful of the physical distancing that we must do, but we are going to carry on the best we can. Today, we are going to talk about collective grief, something that the whole world is experiencing. We're going to dive just a little bit into what is collective grief and what can we do to support ourselves and protect ourselves. So, a little definition: collective grief occurs when communities, society, villages, or a nation experiences extreme change or loss. Collective grief can manifest in the major events such as war, natural disasters, or other mishaps, casualties that are occurring, widespread tragedy. So, COVID 19 has definitely created some collective grief. So, the discomfort and the unsettling feelings that we are feeling collectively is actually grief.
During this pandemic, especially, we are having a strong sense of collective grief as a community. So, not just even on a local level, but throughout the entire world. We are all experiencing this pandemic together, obviously in very different ways, depending on where we live, but we are sharing this grief. And as a group, we're grieving together.
Absolutely.
Yes. So David Kessler, who is an expert in the field of grief, has stated that this collective grief is actually multiple feelings that we are all experiencing at one time and need to find ways to manage this.
Yeah. And right now, we are feeling a number of different griefs. Our world has changed as we know it, and it continues to change. We know this is temporary, yet it doesn't feel this way. And we don't know when things are going to change to go back to normal or when they're going to level off. And it's going to be a very different world that we live in. We are all collectively mourning numerous losses: loss of what is normal, economical tolls, loss of hope, loss of routine, loss of lives, loss of hope, loss of health, all collectively. And I am sure there are many, many other losses that we are all mourning collectively.
And these losses that we're mourning and the collective grief that is both primary and secondary losses throughout this pandemic, they're having a huge impact on our lives. So people today are not used to or familiar with this kind of collective grief or loss and the intensity of it. Most of us have never lived through anything like this before, a global pandemic or the losses of all of the routine structure, family support that we're used to.
Absolutely. And, and in addition to these losses, too, we are social beings. We are not used to not being able to give somebody a hug, to comfort them, to express joy. We're not used to being, 6 feet apart. We're not used to wearing masks. So all these changes have been really unsettling for us as a whole. Another intense feeling that we are feeling right now is something called anticipatory grief, which we talked about earlier in one of our series. We are sort of mourning, what does our future hold? We don't know, and we are sitting in such uncomfortable uncertainty. And here's a quote that I found from Mr. Kessler, which I really quite like, and I'm going to read it. Our primitive mind knows something is happening, but we cannot see it, therefore breaking our sense of safety. It is extremely unusual that the world is collectively experiencing this grief, the loss of safety. Our grief is on a micro and a macro level.
Wow, that is so powerful and so true.
Mhm.
And some ways that we wanted to share with you on how to manage these feelings of grief and collective grief during this time are number one, to balance bad thoughts with good thoughts. So trying to balance out what's going on in our minds of when we kind of go to the catastrophic end of the bad thoughts, try to balance that out and make a concerted effort to consider and recognize the good.
Yeah. Keep your mind and try to focus on the present, not what is going to be in the future and not what was in the past. Try to be very present in the mind.
Which leads into number three, and that is letting go of the things that you cannot control. Because, of course, with this pandemic and everything in life, there is so much beyond our control. And letting go of that a little bit relieves some of the anxiety of everything that's out there and all of the unknowns.
The next tip we can give you is stock up on compassion. Try to be patient and be kind to others, but also to yourself. Compassion, as we know, is a strong motivator, and it really does our body and our soul good to practice compassion for ourselves and for others.
And tip number five is to control what you can and do it well. So we all have our own special set of skills as human beings. Some of us are compassionate by nature. Some of us are doers. But really honing in on what you can do and what your skill is and doing it well will give you some sense of control in all of this.
Mhm. Our next tip would be limit social media viewing. This includes news, TV, Facebook, Instagram, because many times, if we overview social media and a lot of it is focused on the negative or the such horrific things that are going on, we lose our sense of the world, and we tend to have a negative view of the world. And that's not negating the fact that our world right now, as we know it, has been turned upside down. But really try to limit social media.
And our next tip is to find gratitude, as hard as that might be right now. So, finding little gratitudes in our lives at the current moment, it really forces us to look at things differently.
Yeah.
By focusing on what we have instead of what we're missing, um, we're able to still acknowledge what we're missing and really acknowledge the things that we've lost.
Yep.
But it also really forces us to pay attention to what we do have and to try to find gratitude in the things that may have come unexpectedly to us during this time, but also the things that we still do have.
Yeah. Our next tip is really, really try to stay connected with others. Phone calls, Zoom, emails, uh, Facebook video chats, just really try to stay connected with others, even if it's, a 10-minute call saying, hey, I was thinking about you, just wanted to say hi. By keeping connected, that is so vitally important. And yes, we will be able to physically, reconnect with people soon. But in the meantime, really try to stay connected virtually.
And in addition to that, taking care of yourself is so important. It's the number one priority. You are your lifeblood and your essence. You are everything. And keeping yourself strong and taking care of yourself. This can be by keeping up with self-care routines for sleeping, for eating, taking breaks, socializing, and staying active.
Yeah. The next step is name your grief. These feelings of emptiness, pain, and discomfort, disorientation that we've been going through for several months, they're going to be with us for a little bit longer. So by acknowledging their feelings, you're also acknowledging your grief, which is quite healthy. By putting a name to the feelings and by naming grief, it's going to prepare you and you're going to be able to process it much better.
Absolutely, Anne Marie. And what we talk a lot about in grief is the concept of name it to tame it. And being able to put a name to those feelings and all of the emotions, it really does take some of the power back.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And our last point that we'll share with you today is accept that you will go through ups and downs, that this is a journey that it is not a linear path, just like all grief. It's not linear and straight and easygoing. There are ups and downs to this journey as well.
Absolutely. And be mindful too that we're all going through this grief journey. I'd like to share with you a quote from Erica Kroll. She is a mental health practitioner in the States. Life is hard right now, but we have to maintain hope and faith that we're going to get through this. We'll all come out the other side together. Right now, it is so important than ever to recognize and understand the collective grief we are feeling.
So, this information about collective grief we've shared with you today is really just the tip of the iceberg. And actually, tomorrow evening, we have a Morning Chats with Anne Marie and Nancy live event from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And in that event, we will talk all about collective grief and grief during COVID-19 and this pandemic. And we'll also have a memorial service really to recognize all of the experiences we've had this past year, the lives lost, and the other life losses we've experienced. So if you're interested in joining us tomorrow night, click on the Eventbrite link in the video description below, and that will allow you to sign up, and it is a free event. So we really hope you join us. And always, for more information, feel free to visit voinoxford.ca, call or email us. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more Morning Chat videos. Take care.
Thank you.